Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, we have a very special guest, and his name is Calvin Wayman. He is a best-selling author, keynote speaker, and social media entrepreneur. The most inspiring thing about this guy is what he's done in such a short time. He shows where there's a will, there's a way. Seeing where he is now, it's crazy that in just spring 2015, he was still working an employee job. Feeling stuck at a job he wasn't passionate about, he ultimately decided to give himself a chance. He suddenly quit his day job to pursue his dream of working for himself and went selling door to door. He's a man on a mission. He owns Cobb's Media, a social media management agency designed for small businesses and entrepreneurs to stand out beyond 97% of everyone else on social media. He's been featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, Social Media Examiner, The Huffington Post, and was even named one of the top 30 entrepreneurs under the age of 30 by Influencive.com. He recently ran in a 50-mile ultramarathon just to challenge himself, and he just barely released his first book, which debuted on the Amazon Top 100 of all books in the success category. His book is called Fish Out of Water, The Guide to Achieving Breakthrough and Permanently Transforming into the New You. Please welcome Calvin Wayman.
Hey, Yannick. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. So one of the first things we love to ask our guests to share with us is tell us a little bit about your journey. Tell us about who you are as a person down to the core, and how is it that you got to where you are today?
Sure. The thing that I tell most people, like right off the bat, I think it's important to know is I'm just a regular dude. I'm somebody who just wanted more out of life, wanted freedom. And I think it's important to know that I'm just a regular everyday person, because when I was getting started on my journey, I would look at people that I admired, like Lewis Howes or Gary Vaynerchuk or Grant Cardone or even like Steve Jobs. I would look at all of these super successful business people that I admired, even Oprah or Ellen. And I think I tended to put them on a pedestal and thought, yeah, those guys are great. It'd be awesome to kind of be like them, but there's no way in the world I could ever get close to them or have whatever they have. And so I think I put them on this pedestal, or put them on the top of this mountain as a guru that could not ever be attained. And what I've learned over the last year and a half since I've quit my day job, being able to connect with so many amazing people, is they're just that. They're people. And when that clicked for me, that I was like, oh my gosh, here's this person in front of me that's a multimillionaire or a billionaire, and having a conversation with them, seeing that they're just a regular human being, then it clicked for me, and I was like, I can really go after this. And that excited me. And so it's been a crazy last year and a half with just things that I've gone after and just challenges I've put myself through. And I just want people to always know where I came from. So less than 2 years ago, still working at my job, just going through the motions of what we all do, wanting to live a decent life. I have a wife and I have a 3-year-old son and everything like that. Like, I just want people to realize if somebody like me, coming from where I've come from, and I'm still in it. I have not even come close to arriving where I want to be. But if I can do it, it's not that there's anything special. You can do it too. So that's me.
All right. Awesome. Amazing. So if I can do it, you can do it too. It just takes 100%. A little bit of belief and hard work, right?
Those are the two things. Absolutely. That's the belief part, I think, is the big one, because a lot of times, no, really, like you mentioned in my bio, running the 50 miles. When I did that, I totally skipped marathon and went to the 50. And I did that for one thing. It wasn't for my physical body. It was to challenge my belief, because I'll be honest, when I first had the thought of anybody running 50, I was like, there's no way anybody could ever do that. But then I read about a guy named Hal Elrod of The Miracle Morning. Have you ever heard of that book? Maybe Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so in that book, here's Hal Elrod. The book's not even about running, but here's a regular guy that went from hating running to running 50 miles. And he also skipped an ultramarathon. And so then I realized, oh my gosh, I had to have a self reevaluation, because I was like, when I first said it's impossible for anybody to run 50, the only reason I was even being resistant is my own belief in what was possible, not the 50 itself. And so then I had to honestly pursue it. And then I ended up connecting with people that run 100-mile races and hanging out with them, seeing how 100-mile races is not only doable, but a 50 for them is a warm-up. Then it did exactly what you're saying, increased my belief. And that's where I believe it starts, when you can increase your belief and see something that's possible, and then back it up with the second thing you said, hard work, hustle, going after it. Then I would say there's not a whole lot that you can't do. Like, it just opens up, the whole world is your canvas. So amazing stuff. All right. So the show is about navigating the customer experience. And
yes. You have shared with us in your bio, or I shared with the audience with your bio, that it's so important to really be an entrepreneur and be passionate about what you're doing. So you were feeling stuck in your job, but you were passionate about something else. Now, some of the persons that listen to this show aren't necessarily running their own businesses, but they do have some desire to get to that next stage.
Right.
What would be some of the recommendations that you would give them? And do you think customer experience is something that they should really be thinking about from that initial stage, or is it something that you take into consideration after you start the business?
That's such a good question. Throughout my whole transition, and even when I was in my day job, something that was always in my mind, I think it's from Zig Ziglar. He said, help enough people get what they want, and you can have anything that you want, right? And so wherever you're at, in any stage, whether you're an employee and somebody else is working for somebody else's company, or you're looking for more freedom, absolutely it comes down to that customer experience. Because again, it's coming down to making people feel cared about, loved, taken care of, helping them get what they want. Because the truth is, if you really want to go after more, the way to get it is going to be by giving them what they want so you can have what you want. So you're definitely thinking about it on whatever side of the aisle you're on, employee or entrepreneur.
Wow. Good stuff. So how do you feel about customer experience as a customer yourself, and seeing that you are in business as well, because you said you own a social media management agency? How is it that you approach the whole customer experience? Because I know even though it's online, you're still dealing with people.
Well, that's even more important in a lot of ways, because here's the thing about customer experience. It's one of those things that it's mandatory. You've got to have it. And if you don't have it, then it's horrible. Right? Then things really, that's where stuff really gets crazy, when people don't feel cared about, they feel betrayed. And so how I do it online, I mean, part of the training that I do, I train people on social media often with something that I call the 4 C's to social media success. And the last C in those 4 C's that everything comes down to is connection. Right? No matter what you do, whether you're doing it online or in life, the way you're going to build your business and have it grow and scale is by building those connections. I call it doing this scaling by doing the unscalable. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, what a lot of times what gets in people's way when it comes to customer service experience, or just the whole thing, interacting and giving the customer something that's pleasant, is a lot of times it feels like it's taking time. And it is. And it feels like it's taking a lot of investment. And sometimes it is. But they're human beings. And if you want to take it to the next level, then you have to have that foundation. And there's just so many great examples of it. You and I were playing with the idea of Apple. Like Apple, several of us have iPhones. And if I ask this question on stage, who here still has their iPhone box? Most people raise their hand. That's crazy. It's a box.
Yep.
It's a box, but they have it down to the detail of what you feel like when you open that thing. It's a piece of cardboard or whatever it is, but it's designed so well. It has the phone right there on the top, and it makes you feel special, and you think you should be keeping this box. And most people do. They don't do anything with it. They just set it in their closet, but they feel bad about throwing it away because they feel like it feels pretty good. It must be something worth keeping, you know? So it touches everything, and especially on the online space, you have to you have to scale by doing the unscalable, reaching out to your customers when they don't expect it. Even on when you're trying to grow your following, and you think of your followers as quote unquote customers, give them a good experience. Everybody that follows me on Facebook, for example, I'll go back to them and send them a voice memo, right? So that it makes this touch more human, because online it's so easy to forget that it's another human being on the other line. And so if you really want to stand out and give somebody a great experience, then just do something that makes it human. If they hear your voice instead of just seeing chat, then that is such an easy way, and you just stand out past everybody else. So yeah, it's super important no matter what your business is, certainly offline, but also online as well, and sometimes even more important because most people just forget about it.
All right. Now, what are some everyday solutions that you believe can help improve customer experience that you believe some business owners are not necessarily taking into account in their own businesses based on your own experience?
Well, again, some people just do the work and don't really touch back. We try to get cell phone numbers of our customers, and we'll text them, you know, and we can text from our computer system and stuff like that, but that's just something that's more personal. It feels more real. I mentioned doing the voice memo. Sometimes we'll do a quick video for a specific customer and say their name just to give them their results. Just anything that I feel like makes it more human. Mm-hmm. That's probably one of the biggest things you can do, because that's what people want to have. But at the same time, it's just not making the mistakes because when the experience is bad, that's where things really get in the way. I recently, I don't know if you want me to go into any like bad examples.
Yes, of course, because we want to understand, you know, how can we learn from the negative experiences? Some people look at customers as problems, and they're actually opportunities.
Okay, so this recently happened for me like just a couple weeks ago, and it made me feel horrible. I was actually on the other end of it, and I got delayed at an airport for 26 hours. And it was unnecessary at the same time. So I go to this is a good example of companies that put policies over people. And that, I think, is one of the biggest mistakes anybody can ever do when it comes to your customer experience. Never put policy over people. And then after I give you the bad example, I'll wrap it up with a better one and show you how companies that don't have to do it, that go out of policy, and how it just makes such a big difference. So a few weeks ago, I go to the airport, and everything I do is electronic. I'm a millennial, so I don't have printed out itinerary. It's all from my cell phone. Mm-hmm. So I get in the line, and I hand the security my phone. I have the airline's app on there, and he goes to it and he says, I'm not seeing the barcode. I'm seeing the itinerary, but I'm not seeing the barcode to scan. And I'm like, interesting. So I look through the phone, the app, and I'm like, I'm not seeing it either. That's so weird. And my flight is in about 50 minutes, so I need to get things moving. And after we can't find it, we get several other security people over to come look at the boarding pass to find the barcode for the boarding pass. We can't find it. So after several minutes of several people looking through it, then they say, well, you're just going to have to go to a kiosk and print it out. And I was like, okay, I've never printed it out, but I go to this kiosk to print it out. Well, the airline that I was flying had their portion of the kiosk turned off, so you couldn't print it out. And so then I went back to security and said, hey, the kiosk is off, so we just need to find it, because here's my itinerary. It's showing my flight. It's showing my seat number and everything. We just can't find the barcode. What can we do? And after I had about 5 different people look at my phone app, we couldn't figure it out. So then We was like, well, you just better go down to this airline's customer service. I go down to the airline's customer service, and I say, my barcode's not showing. And he says, yeah, we've had a little bit of issue. Let me see if I can get it fixed. And then he says, oh, I actually can't turn it on because you're within the 45 minutes before leaving. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, sorry. Even if I could, yeah, you're just going to have to get another flight. And I said, my flight's not for 40 minutes. That's plenty of time. He's like, yeah, sorry, I can't. And I was like, why? And I said, I have a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I can't miss that meeting. And he said, I can't turn it on. I can't show. I said, just show the barcode. And he just kept saying that it would make so that I might be late. And it was literally still 40 minutes before the plane leaves. And I asked him, how long does it take you to walk to the gate? And he said it takes him 7 minutes, but he doesn't have to go through security. And I was like, then give me 15. At least let me try. And he just kept giving me all these reasons why he can't, and said that he didn't want me to come back and have to reschedule. He'd rather just me reschedule right now. And I was like, you don't understand. I need to be there at 9 a.m. So here's someone that he could have just made one little switch and said, yeah, we've had issues. Let me turn it on. I understand that you're under the 45 minutes that we try to get people through, but let me get you through. Mm-hmm. And I talked with him for like 15 minutes. And then even after I had it booked, several other people way later than me were going through security to get on that exact same flight. I had so much time. And what makes it even worse is, so I ended up having to sit out that airport for 26 hours, completely missing an entire day, missing my important meeting that I had. And when I got the flight the next day, I looked at my watch from the time I was at security to the time I got through, and it only took me 9 minutes.
Wow.
And so here's someone that he was putting policy over people. And what I learned from him after we booked it, he's like, well, I was like, just curious, what made you not want to do it? And he said, well, there's this manager lady that every time it's under the 45 minutes, she gets mad at the gate when we turn it back on. And so he was covering his own self to not get in trouble or whatever with his own manager. And it was enough to have me, a customer, well, I don't think I'm ever going to use that airline again, right? Mm-hmm. Because it was such a negative experience. I'd never been delayed for so long for something, and unnecessarily.
So were you checked in?
So I was at the airport, but that was the thing. The check-in button wasn't on my phone because they were having glitches. And when I finally went to the customer service, it was within the 45 minutes, so they couldn't turn it on to allow the check-in to happen.
I understand.
And he told me that they've done it before when they've had glitches, but usually when they've had glitches, the customer comes up and it's 45 minutes or longer still. Mm-hmm. But because I was within the 45 minutes, he wouldn't fix it, or he wouldn't turn it on so I could get through. Mm. So that's, to me, is just an example of having an experience gone awry, because what it ultimately came down to is a company that has a policy. And policies are important because they help a company function and run more smoothly. But when you have policies that contradict the human experience and you put policies over people, that's where you have a problem. And there's a really amazing book that talks about this type of a thing, that puts it in a great way, and it's by a guy who I love following. His name's Del Partridge, and he has a book called People Over Profit.
Yes, love it.
It's such a good book, and it shows how you need to be thinking about your business, because no matter whether it's online, if it's on the internet, if it's an airline, if it's a brick and mortar, businesses are about people fundamentally, not just processes and policies.
True.
And if you take care of your people, you're going to take care of your business. And where everybody gets in trouble, there's this big thing happening, at least has been, with Wells Fargo over the last few months in hot water here in the U.S. And the biggest issues that they're having is how they have been treating their people right? Or their customers in a not good way. And so I think that's just the biggest takeaway here is you got to put your people over your policies. Now, here's a great example of a company that it's actually it also happens in an airport, which is interesting. But have you ever heard of Morton's Steakhouse?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so here's this guy that is jumping on an airline, and he's going to get on this long airline flight. So he sends out a tweet, and he tags Morton's in it, and he says, "Man, this is going to be a long flight. I would love a Morton steak at the end of this." And he was just joking. Like, he sent out this tweet, was just completely joking, almost like if it's starting to snow, we'll make a tweet that says, "Dear winter, please go away."
Right.
Okay, thanks, bye. Like, nothing serious. It's like, I'd love a Morton Steakhouse. But he gets to the end of his airline flight, he comes off the plane, and guess what he sees right there in the airport? A guy in a tuxedo, bow tie and all, with a Morton Steakhouse meal for this gentleman completely for free.
Wow.
So Morton saw that tweet. And if you just think of all the logistics that had to come and play for that to happen, for somebody at Morton's to see that tweet, to then get it approved in however way they did and said, let's do this stunt, and to even find the guy's airline and see when he was going to land and plan everything to get the food cooked right, to be right there in the airport when he land. It's crazy. So many resources were into that.
Yeah, that's magic.
Total magic. But the question is, do you think that made a connection with that guy? Do you think it gave him a good customer experience?
Of course. I mean, that would have exceeded anyone's expectations.
Absolutely. And that's just the point. It blew his mind so much. He was so excited about it, so impressed, realizing what Morton's did, that he ended up writing a blog post about it and sharing his story. And it ended up being shared thousands and thousands of times. And Morton's business blew up because of that. And that's just one little thing. That's just taking care of one customer, doing one little thing. And most people might look at that in the beginning, or even the idea of it, and say, well, we can't do that, because that's going to cost us time, money, and resources. But it's something you can't scale and do over and over. But it's when you do those human touches that your whole business will grow. And then Morton's has that story within their culture. And so it just has this whole culture of taking care of people, and people over processes, people over policies, people over procedure. And that's how I think any business continues to flourish, is when they keep that in mind, that it's the people that matter, and give them the experience. They're the reason you're in business. So amazing. Great stories. All right. Now, your book, Fish Out of Water, The Guide to Achieving Breakthrough and Permanently Transforming into the New You. Could you share a little bit about the book, and how can it really help persons that would be listening to this show, as well as people who are not listening to the show, but maybe someone who listens to the show says, I listened to this podcast episode, and this guy named Calvin Wayman, and I really think his book is something that you should connect with. So what are some main takeaways that your purpose and intention was for this book? Well, we're coming up on January, and I think that's where this book's really going to become really heavy and super important, because in January, everybody sets New Year's resolutions. True. Right? And they get super excited about it. Then come February, what happens? They kind of just flatline. Yes, flatline, or people quit. But Mike, when I started the book, I was analyzing that and was like, why is that? What's happening here? And what I discovered is there's this thing that's not talked about in business or goal setting or aiming higher in any part of your life at all. And it's this period where after you get excited, after you start taking action on a goal, you hit this point where it's not very exciting anymore. You feel out of your element. You feel awkward. You feel like a fish out of water. Yeah. And that's because you're doing something that is out of your element. just like a fish is out of its element when it's out of water. Now, the tragedy is when most people hit that point, like in February when they become a fish out of water, because they fell out of their element, they end up reverting back to their old fishbowl of mediocrity. And so what my book is all about is recognizing that this is going to happen. So in any business you're at, if you're a business owner that wants to completely change the culture of your business or develop a whole completely new customer experience, then you're going to go through this growth stage where you're going to feel like a fish out of water because it's going to be completely new territory from what you're at right now. So that's what the whole book is about, is recognizing you're going to become a fish out of water, but here are the principles that you can go through to not just revert back and flatline and become normal, but completely break through and create an entirely new standard for your life or your business.
Okay. Now, you have a section in there called SWIM, which is an acronym, I'm assuming,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And and it says swim like a shark. Now,
Yes.
shark and development and, moving forward in your life, I don't know if those two actually connect. So could you share with us a little bit about why you would need to swim like a shark and what are the characteristics of a shark that we would need to be inculcating into our life?
Absolutely. So a shark in my book is a really positive thing. So I use the opposite of like a guppy, which is your smaller, average type of version of yourself, and a shark is something completely different, something you transform into. I do that because I think when you break through that fish out of water stage, you don't just become a bigger fish. You become a completely different fish, something that's confident. You literally transform. And so one of the main principles I talk about near the end of the book is swimming like a shark. And SWIM is an acronym of 4 things that I've noticed with successful people. And when you start behaving like a shark, then it pulls you in that direction to become a shark yourself. So SWIM stands for success, words, improve, and measure. Okay? So success is defining success the right way, because I've noticed that as I've talked to millionaires and billionaires, they think of success completely differently than, let's say, a guppy does. For example, a guppy thinks that success is arriving at a destination or getting the result. And it makes sense, right? But what I've noticed is successful people are masters of the mundane. They're used to doing the same thing over and over and over, and that is success. Or said in a different way is they view success as something completely in their control. So they're focused inward on saying, what can I do? They take personal responsibility for it. And it's by doing those things and taking that personal responsibility that makes the results happen as a byproduct. But they're not waiting for the result to come before they say, I am successful, like you might as a guppy, or that guppies might. Like, I'm not going to be successful until this day, until I achieve this. No, you can wake up and be successful today. You can have your goal in the distance and say, if that's my goal, what action can I take today to get me closer? So that's the main thing with the S in SWIM in that chapter, is recognizing how sharks think about success and realizing that it's in your control and staying focused within your control. Okay?
Amazing.
Now words, that was a big lesson for me. Words is showing that people that are successful and have they live by success principles that are, again, the people we admire, whether they're a famous movie star, whether it's Oprah, it's Ellen, if it's a millionaire, if it's a billionaire, if it's somebody with a big company, they speak differently than most people. They have a different language. The words they use and the topics they talk about, that's what words is all about. And I'll just use one little piece from the words section of my book, and it's something I learned from one of my mentors named Michael Burnoff. Michael Burnoff is known as like the other Tony Robbins or something like that. He's great with like transforming people into a new version of themselves. And one day I was getting coaching from him, and he asked me a question, and I said, sure. And he just completely stopped the conversation and said, what did you say? And I said, what? He's like, what did you just say? And I said, sure. I said, sure. And he said, Calvin, do you know what sure means? I was like, no, what does it mean? He said, sure means screw you. Except he actually said the F word. And it shocked me. I was like, what? He said, what you need to realize, Calvin, is sure and maybe and I don't know and perhaps, those are all fluffy, uncertain words. And if you want to be successful, what you'll notice is successful people use words that are definite. Yes, no, absolutely. And they're certain in the things they say. They're absolute. And it was an amazing coaching lesson for me. And he was like, Calvin, what you say matters. The words you use matter. And so I look at the word like sure as a curse word for me because he went through the same process and he saw how he changed his language when he was on his way to becoming a millionaire. And so that was just a major, major lesson for me. So that's what words is all about.
That was like a BFO.
Yes, absolutely. Now, when it comes to I in swim, I stands for improve. Now, this is super important if you're looking to grow your business or always have a better customer experience. What you'll notice with Apple or any good company that's been around for a while is they don't ever arrive. They're always improving. They're always looking for the latest ways to develop the customer experience. A great example of somebody that finally got their act together was Nintendo. So for years, they were stuck to the console. And in the day, that was the thing to give the best customer experience. But then these things came around called cell phones, right? And people were on mobile. And it took them forever, but finally this year they came out with what? Pokemon Go, right? And Pokemon Go was a way of improving from where they were. And it created such a big, amazing customer experience, and it exploded and had like the biggest growth of any app in history. Yeah. When they made that switch. So that's what I is all about, is always continuing to improve where you are, because successful businesses, successful people never arrive. And the final thing that helps with everything, M stands for measure. And measuring the right things. I had a mentor tell me once, actually I went to him and I was complaining. And because something wasn't happening the way I thought it should, or I wasn't growing as much as I thought I should. And he said, well, how are you measuring it? And I was like, I'm not measuring it. And he was like, well, that's the problem. He said, you don't know if you're winning if you don't keep score. And you get more of what you measure. So measure is just super important. It's what I've noticed so many successful people, it's what sharks do, is they measure the key indicators of what they want to move. So keep score, but measure the right things. Measure the things you want to get more of. And here's an example of what you should measure versus what you shouldn't measure. According to my mentor, he said what most people do is they want to, let's say they want to get in better shape or increase their finances. And so they measure how heavy they are, right? He's like, if you think of it that you're going to get more of what you measure, you're in resistance there. You don't want to measure how heavy you are because you don't want to be more pounds, right? True. People want to get out of debt, and yet they're measuring their debt. So they're in resistance. They're trying to, it's going to want to get more debt. So what do you measure? And you measure what he explained to me is a lead measure, something that if you do more of it, it will change the result. So if you want to lose weight, instead of losing weight, instead of how much you weigh, you could do a couple things. You could measure how much weight you lost so you get more of it, or even better, measure the thing 100% in your control, like how many days you worked out, or how many sets you did, how much you maxed out, right? How many perfect days you had with eating well. Mm-hmm. Do the things that if you do them that are 100% in your control, then it can predictively change the result, right? If you want to get out of debt, measure your income, right? Measure ways to make money and things like that. And that's what's going to get you closer to getting the actual result you want. So that's what the M stands for, is measure. You don't know if you're winning if you don't keep score. And to take it one step further, measure the things that getting more of is going to help you win. This is what the sharks do. This is what makes them successful. And the cool thing is anybody can adopt it. So that is how you swim like a shark.
Wow, I love it. So, success, words, improve, and measure. So, all of you guys that are out there listening to this episode, I encourage you to go on Amazon immediately or go to your local bookstore and purchase Calvin's book.
I had a link for you. I have a link for you to make it super easy. So, yeah, it's available Barnes & Noble, Amazon, the library, and also Audible and Kindle, wherever you can find it. But to make it super easy, if you're listening to this, you can just go to calvinwayman.com/book to make it super easy to find it. So calvinwayman.com/book.
Amazing. Super. All again, a part of the customer experience.
Yes. Make it easy for them.
True. Okay, Calvin. So how do you stay motivated every day?
Man, I'm so motivated by the I in swim. I believe in Tony Robbins when he says progress equals happiness. And so that's what drives me. I want freedom, and I like impacting people's lives, but more importantly, I like to see where I'm at and taking it to the next level. That just makes me feel good. When I did something and went from when I went from being completely in debt to becoming debt-free, that felt good. Mm-hmm. Improving in that way. When I went from being an employee to having my own company, that felt good. When I was 30, 40 pounds overweight and I lost the weight, it felt good. When I went from running a half marathon to an ultra, that felt good. So just getting up every day and saying, what can I do to improve myself, just to stretch myself a little bit, because we're all where we're at. And to get where it is we want to go, it's actually not as crazy of a drastic change as we might think. It's like 1% improvement a day. But over time, I mean, in 100 days, you're like twice as good.
True.
So that's what I'm all about. That's what drives me, just saying, this is where I'm at, and what can I do to stretch myself just a little bit to make myself go a little bit further. So
amazing. Just doing a little bit every day. I love it.
Yes.
Now, what's the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you could not absolutely live without in your own business? Calendly.
No, dead serious. So that's how we got on this or something like that. But
right.
Podcasters use it all the time. Yeah, I used to get so big, especially in an online world where you're talking to people from all over the world and they're different time zones. Sometimes it's hard to meet, but when I got Calendly, that just fixed everything. So people can go set time with you, and it just takes out all the guesswork. People come to me all the time and says we should connect, and then I can just put it in their court instead of like going back and forth and being stressed out. I can say, you know what? Here's my personal link. Feel free to pick a time, and I'll be there.
Yeah.
So Calendly for sure.
Amazing. I use it as well, and I do totally agree. Especially when I have guests that are like, for example, in Australia.
Yeah.
You know, it really
completely different time zone.
Yeah.
Right?
Trust me, it really makes a big difference, because I can just imagine the back and forth we would be going through just to agree on a time that's suitable for both of us.
Yes, totally. It makes it super easy.
Now, you mentioned some books that you've read that clearly have had some impact on you, like People of a Prophet, right?
Uh-huh.
What are some other books that you'd like to mention that you think have had the biggest impact on your own growth and development?
There are some books that I try to read every year because they've made a big impact, like How to Win Friends and Influence People is a big one, especially when it comes to dealing with people and having a customer experience. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was huge for me creating the type of business that I wanted to and being more entrepreneurial. Something more recently is a book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. So The One Thing is all about, if you want to be most effective, how you can just strip away all the noise and find that one thing that makes that you're just completely the best at. Focus on that one thing, get it done, and it just changes everything. That was huge for me, especially when I was writing my book, because I had so many things going. And when I read that book and realized if I just focus on this until it's done, focus on completion, then it just makes everything better. So yeah, that has made a big impact on my life and will continue to. So the one thing.
Sweet. And just to let you know, I think you're probably, out of our 29 episodes that have been published so far, maybe the 7th or 8th guest that has indicated that that's one of the books that has had the biggest impact on them. So for those
awesome.
of you guys listening, that is definitely
hint.
a book you need to get.
Yes, hint, hint. That's awesome.
All right.
Cool.
Now, what's the one thing that's going on in your life right now that you are really excited about? Either something you're working on to develop yourself or your business or your people?
My first live event. I'm doing my first live event in 2.5 weeks. Something I've never done before. Stepping into new waters for sure. And so that's what I'm nervous about, but yet excited about it at the same time.
Cool. And if we visit your website, calvinwayman.com, we can get more information on it?
Absolutely.
Amazing. Now, apart from your website, can you tell our listeners where they can find you online, like on Twitter, Facebook, if you're on any other social media like Periscope and Instagram?
Absolutely. So any social platform, any of those that you just mentioned, you can find me just by searching Calvin Wayman. And again, the top 3 platforms I use the most. If you reach out, feel free to say hi. I will definitely engage back. You might even get a video or something like that. But Facebook, Snapchat, and Instagram are the 3 that I use the most. And you can find me just by searching Calvin Wayman.
Super duper. All right. So we are almost at the end of our interview, Calvin. And one of the questions that we like to close with our guests is to ask them, what is a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, they may revert to this quote to kind of help them to get back on track, to re-engage them, to help them to refocus. Do you have one of those?
Yes. I don't know if it's totally tied to the customer experience, but it's tied to a business owner or an entrepreneur or somebody that's leveling up. Sometimes when we're moving or we have a desire to move into a direction, we feel stuck and we feel like we're facing adversity and we don't know how to get through it. And something that's helped me is another thing that I learned from one of my mentors, and it's this: done is better than perfect. So done is better than perfect means just move in any way that you can, because oftentimes as business owners or entrepreneurs, we're our own worst critic and we want it to look perfect, but progress doesn't happen without movement. Movement requires action.
True.
And so sometimes when we're hitting that adversity, the biggest thing it does to us is the fear freezes us. So to break that apart, just give yourself permission that it's better to look sloppy and do something than nothing. So 1 is greater than 0. No, done is better than perfect, and just take that next step.
I love it. Done is better than perfect. Short,
Yes.
sweet, and to the point.
Absolutely.
Well, Calvin, I thoroughly enjoyed this interview. I learned so
Me
much
too.
from you, and I know our guests or our listeners that are out there, they're going to get as much value and even more from this interview when it's released. So thank you so much.
Unique, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So I just want to remind our listeners that they can follow us on Facebook and join our closed group. It's called Navigating the Customer Experience Community. And also feel free to follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. We look forward to engaging and connecting with you further in more detailed conversation on these platforms. And feel free to give us any ideas or suggestions that you have. So just want to thank you again, Calvin.
Hey, thank you so very much. It's been a pleasure. Let's go navigate not only our greatness, but do it by helping enough people get what they want so we can have everything that we want.
Amazing. Amazing. So well said. All right, guys. So until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. We really appreciate your support of this podcast. Are you ready to grow your business even more? Or improve your leadership skills? Or train your team members in the art of customer service? Give us a call at 305-848-0815 or visit our website at www.yannickgrant.com. That's YANIQUEGRANT.com. Remember, 305 848-0815 or visit our website at uniquegrant.com. Our new online course, Mastering Customer Experience and Increasing Your Revenue, is now available. The link for this will be on the show notes of each episode starting September 7, 2016. The first 2 modules are free, so hop on over, have a look, and take the steps to increase your revenue.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.